Welcome to Good Morning Joy. I'm your host, Shari Alyse. I hope that you have grabbed your favorite cup of something because I have got a great show for you today. We've got TV comedy writer from the hit shows Everybody Loves Raymond, Everybody Hates Chris, SNL, Dave Letterman, and now he is the newly published author of All I Needed to Know I Learned from My College Bar. Plus, a little later, we're going to meet people out on the streets of Los Angeles. But before we do that, it is time to share with you the good news that everyone should know about on the Joy Report. Just a few months ago, 93-year-old Grandma Joy just set the world record for being the oldest person to visit all 63 U.S. national parks. Grandma Joy and her grandson, Brad Ryan, took off for an 8-year road trip across the U.S. They have been ziplining, they have gone white water rafting, they've stood on glaciers, they've rolled down the dunes of Colorado, and they've almost been mowed down by a moose in Montana. And while their travels have now taken them around the world, just a little while ago, they were worlds apart. Grandma Joy and her grandson, Brad Ryan, had been estranged for nearly a decade after Brad's parents got a divorce. Years later, though, Brad found himself in a dark place after the suicide of his friend, and he decided that he wanted to prioritize what was important to him, and that was Grandma Joy. He recalled how she once said she had never seen a mountain or an ocean, so he called her up and asked her if she wanted to go to the Smoky Mountains. At the time, 85-year-old Grandma Joy said, "Well, I'll give it a whirl. I've never been in one." Grandma Joy shows us that it is never too late to pursue your dreams. And she also said that if somebody tells you that you're too old, just give them a flip and keep on going. Our next guest is a perfect example of keep on going with your dreams. After nearly 3 decades of holding on to crumpled napkins of wisdom he learned while owning a bar in college, he's taken some of his greatest life lessons and he's gathered them into his book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My College Bar. Let's meet TV comedy writer and author, and now guru, Adam Lorenzo. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. Joy.
Oh, that joke. I think I've branded Joy really well because nobody knows my name is Shari. Let's just put that right there.
Okay. Thanks for having me on. Both from Syracuse.
Both
Go Cuse.
Go Cuse. Go Orange. It's been a really long time. I barely remember that I went there.
All right.
So let me just clear up just one thing first.
Okay.
You were in college.
Yes.
You owned a college bar.
Yeah.
And you graduated.
Yeah, and I had a second one by the time I graduated, no joke, in Alex Bay. I don't know if you ever went up, but about an hour and a half away.
No, I didn't go there. I was too busy missing my old high school sweetheart, so I barely drank in college.
All right.
I know, but I remember hearing it was Maggie's, right?
It was Maggie's.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Maggie's on the Bay, which was up in Alex Bay. But yeah, I did manage to graduate as well and did okay. So
how do you decide that you're going to not just go to a bar like most college students do, but that you're going to own a bar?
It wasn't a decision. It was, more survival. It was just working there. The thought is, how do you get a job? How do you pay bills? What do you do? And that's how it worked. I was bartending, working, and then it was going to close or be sold. And this isn't out here, Los Angeles, Hollywood money. This is small town Syracuse money. And
Syracuse.
Yeah,
that accent.
on the hill.
Yes.
Maggie's on the hill, and long story short, the owners held a promissory note for me, so it wasn't a large sum of money down or anything. I just pay back every month, and that's how a lot of things work over there, and probably out here too.
Well, it's interesting. It's different. I worked a job for 3 weeks in the dining hall, and I was like, this is too much. And I called Dad up and was like, I can't work while I'm in college. So, one, because I was obviously spoiled, but two, because there's a lot happening. How did you manage going to school, owning a bar, being out till 3 in the morning?
Yeah.
Was it like writing all the stuff on the napkins, like your life?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think about it sometimes in hindsight. My upbringing was extremely unusual, And I don't talk about it much. I think I talked about it in one other press, but I had my own apartment when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
I was selling TV guides, as a telemarketer. I was a janitor in a AAA building. I'd always been kind of hustling, working really hard. So the idea of not working wouldn't, that was first. That was primary purpose. And then the other stuff, school.
The other stuff.
And, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the idea of what did I learn in that entrepreneurial environment that taught me how to have success. I think there's a lot of wisdom to that.
Well, there was so much wisdom in this book. We're going to dive into it in a minute, but
okay.
I literally sat here reading it and just laughing, and it was it's such a good book. Like, well, who did you write it for?
Thank you. Well, I wrote it for college students. For me, I wrote it for me because, like everything I write, it's what makes me laugh. What would I like to share with people? But, I wish someone would have gone back, and I wish I could go back and tell my younger self a lot of these lessons.
Yeah.
And, you learn them with life if you're lucky, and if you pay attention, and if you write them down, and then you turn them into funny. So, anyone that wants to benefit from that. And I love those books. I remember, I just thought about it the other day when I was in college. I had this book, I don't remember the author, but it was like a pocket guide to wisdom or something for heroes, a pocket guide for heroes, I think it was called. And I used to go back and just read these little paragraphs every now and then. And that's the kind of book I like.
Yeah. Well, no, and I love, what it reminded me of? It was back during our time. Do you remember that song, Sunscreen, that was like Baz? He was like, make sure you wear your sunscreen. And it was like to students, and it was saying, like, be mindful with your heart that you give away. Anyway, it was very much for young people and wisdom. And as I was reading this, it was bringing all of that back because you do it in such, well, the illustrations are amazing.
That's Antonio Pina. Thank you for saying, he's an unbelievable illustrator based in Milan, contributes to the New Yorker all the time. I mean, he's out of control awesome.
Yeah, there was some really funny stuff, but the messages were so obviously apropos for college students, but they're life lessons, which is why you put them in there.
Right.
I'm curious for you. So what would you say is one of the greatest lessons that you learned in a college bar?
I think the idea of, the one that stays with me a lot is that you either set your day up or your day sets you up. And I think that's kind of appropriate for your show too. But I really believe that, how I start my day, instead of letting the day just happen to me. And if you do that kind of on a daily basis, what you can build with your life. But I don't want it to just come on me. I want to set it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so powerful. And I think so many of us wish that we knew that when we were younger, because we do go on that roller coaster ride. That's right. It's like, oh, hold on, what's next? So knowing, like, consciously to be able to do that, amazing.
Yeah, making decisions that could make your life better.
Yeah. So let's talk, though, about these crumpled napkins. And I mean, so were you studying writing in school? Did you always want to be a writer?
No, I mean, I was thinking politics maybe.
That's why we didn't know each other then.
Yeah. And I thought maybe lawyer. I'd done some interning for Senator Moynihan before I transferred to Syracuse and Buffalo. Then I really had this idea of environmental law. That was really what I thought Adam Lorenzo's future was going to be. I had a dream of writing, but it wasn't about pursuing dreams. It was about what will earn a good living and, what would other people do that I could possibly live a life like that. So, no, that was the idea. It was politics, maybe be a lawyer. I was prepping. But then this, this world of the college bar, it's a fun world. I was 20 years old, turning 21. Yeah. And, it's a fun world. It was all cash back then. I mean, it's a lot of stuff to really, really get your attention. And, but then with the crumpled napkins, I had this fire in my belly since I was a kid, inexplicably. I'm going to live in Los Angeles one day. I'd never been. I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles. I'm going to be a writer. No, I didn't know you could earn a living, but I knew it as a kid. It was like otherworldly. So yeah, there were days I would look at my reflection. I'd bartend every night for years. And I would think, I'm going to write about this someday. This is, and the lessons, the people you meet from everywhere. And the environment itself is a really special environment. It's not, the thing I say about the books is about thinking, not drinking. And with the, with the college bar, it was so much about friendship, community. It's a home away from home. The things I saw there, we would spend holidays together. Yeah, it's a special place. Yeah. And shockingly, like, super safe.
So you thought?
No, I'm just kidding. I think it was super safe because no one wants to get in trouble.
Right.
Everybody's on their best behavior. No one wants their parents called. No one wants the police called.
Well, I love it. But what I love is that you had like the insight to learn stuff, write it down, and hold on to it. And it's almost as if like there was this part of you that knew not only this book, but I mentioned that you've written for Everybody Loves Raymond and Everybody Hates Chris. Yeah. I'm like, first there needs to be a show like everyone feels neutral about somebody.
I've got the everybody.
Okay,
yeah, I've got the everybody. I'm the only guy who's worked on both Everybody shows as a writer. No joke.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Everybody Loves Raymond. And Chris Rock made the title of Everybody Hates Chris as a joke about Raymond. So
yeah, which is very interesting.
It's wild that I had both of those credits.
Absolutely. That's why I was like, how did he do this? And how did he fit this in? And we need to change this. God, it was that one night in the bar late at night. So when you wrote this, what made you, just come to that this is the time to bring all these notes, these napkins together and do this? Yeah,
I would keep, there was a shelf under the bar in both places, and I would write ideas, that not just ideas for this, but sketch ideas. I loved Saturday Night Live, I loved Dave Leonard, jokes, things like that. No idea what the heck I was doing, and I'd stuff them in there, and I keep most of my stuff like that. And the pandemic hit, and there really wasn't anything to do. I had just sold this drama movie. I'm a comedy writer. I had sold this movie. It got paused because of the pandemic, and I thought, what could I sell during the, what could I put my energy towards? Because I write every day, all day, and that wasn't going to stop.
You're a real writer.
I love writing. It's really a gift, and it's like air to me. I wouldn't know what to do without it. So I thought, I'm gonna write this book, and I just took out all the notes. I happen to have, it really is just all the way it was supposed to be. I had just sold a house of mine, and so I had to pack. I had a box. I was going through a lot of the stuff, like my old scripts and jokes. I saw a lot of the notes. I thought, ooh, maybe this is the time for this. And so I took them all out, and I just started, I always try to, what makes me laugh? What would I want to read? What would I want to watch? And I've had enough, luckily success to know that a lot of times those stories that are most personal are the most universal. So that's what I did.
I love it. And you've got some really cool celebs doing part of this with you, the College Bar Challenge. Yeah. That was really neat. Tom Arnold, Al Franken.
Yeah, those were great. Speaking of politics, when I first got in.
You were speaking of politics, I wasn't.
That's right, I was. So, Al was one of the first guys I met, big SNL alum, and I love Al, he's great. And I called him up and I said, hey, I've got this book out there that's coming out, and we're going to do a College Bar Challenge. You say your name, where you went to school, where you went to college, and the best piece of life wisdom that you learned in a college bar. So will you do one? 10 seconds, And he did it.
Hi, I'm Al, and I went to Harvard. And the number one thing I learned in a bar in college was don't bet $10 that you can name all 50 states.
And yes, Tom Arnold was unbelievably funny and did one from Iowa.
Hi, I'm Tom Arnold, University of Iowa. All I needed to know I learned at my old college bar, the Airliner. Number one, always have a buddy who'll bail you out of jail naked, no questions asked. Number two, have a second friend that remembers to bring your underwear to the jail when they're bailing you out.
I'm getting some great ones, and it's just starting to pick up steam. We had Josh Radnor from How I Met Your Mother did one for me the other day. Yeah. There's also some great directors, fun stuff. Thanks for mentioning it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we're filming this right now, there is the writer strike happening, and the show is about joy. So I don't want to, but I know as we talked that there were. It felt like there was some sort of good stuff happening in terms of camaraderie between writers. I'd love to just know your experience and what you're taking from this right now.
Sure, the joyful aspect of picketing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a community that's pretty isolated normally. I'm going to all the different studios. I have a neighbor who I just wrote a movie with. His name's David Toohey. He's unbelievable, successful filmmaker. And we're hitting, we go to the lots, we carpool, and we go to them. And, you meet, I see friends I haven't seen in 10, 15 years, you know, from shows that you don't normally interact with. So that's a great part of it, you know, a part of the joy. And you see how special it is. The actors, you know, SAG, the WGA, all, you know, you learn these stories. I didn't know what was going on with I know my world of writers, but I didn't realize that some of the actors weren't getting, you know, residuals. For, like I saw the Breaking Bad guy wasn't getting residuals for his show on Netflix. I was shocked by that information. I thought, well, no wonder why you're out here, you know? So, you know, it's educational, the energy's amazing, you know, seeing old friends, and it's Hollywood. You know, you're out there in front of the studios, you're like, this is Hollywood. And we're all playing this, you know, we're all doing the same deal. You know, the studios love the Hollywood too. We're all gonna work it out. But it's also show business. Right. So right now we're more on the business than the show. But we'll get back to it.
But I bet you're all putting on a show, all you writers, comedy writers. Are you naturally funny, or are you only funny in a script?
Yeah, I'm a pretty serious dude. And I think most really good comedy writers are pretty serious people. Yeah. They're not like clowny joke people. Because it's about, you got to be funny. I mean, I started as a joke writer in late night TV. That's how I got in, by sending stuff to Dave Letterman. And I stayed in late night for a while. And you got to have that joke muscle.
Oh, yeah.
But the stories, you know, like we were talking about Everybody Loves Raymond, that first episode I sold, a story called Crazy Chin, was based on OCD I had as a kid when I touched food to my chin before I ate it. There was nothing funny about it. You know, it was painful. I was bullied. It was hard. But you know, there's this phrase that I love, you can turn your scars into stars.
Oh, I love that.
And, you know, if you get lucky, you use that joke muscle and a good story with some depth, and you can, you know, you can get it out there.
Yeah.
So
I know, I love that. I always heard mess to message, but I've never heard scars to stars.
I like mess to message,
too. That's
another one.
I didn't write it. I wish I did. But you know, it's so funny. I have so much respect for you comedic writers. I tried stand-up comedy last year for the first time, and I had learned my life lesson was, you're not funny, Shari.
It's an important lesson.
Well, I was good on stage, but I realized that I needed joke writers. And I realized, though, that shows, like, as much as, because I'm trained in acting, but as much as, you know, you think that it's about the actors, it really is about the writers, because I was like, you would not make it in this world, Shari.
It's about the writers, but it's also about the actors. And it's also about everybody involved. You know, there's so many people involved, from the sound person to the, you know, I see it all. You know, like on Everybody Hates Chris, the set design, so beautiful. I mean, it was just so gorgeous, and the directors, and, you know, and most people in Hollywood, which is why I think the strike, you know, it's necessary to do this. Most people just are here. You kick down the door to get in. You love what you do. Yes. We're all here because we're passionate. This isn't, you know, we're not in a mill somewhere.
Because then I'd have to work. We know how I felt about that in college. So a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
So what would, you know, well, let me just ask this. What's next for you? Like, what's the big dream for you?
Well, you know, I'm living the dream.
I was waiting for that one.
This is a funny little story off. So I remember, like, on my first day on Everybody Hates Chris, there was this great writer who was running the room that day with the creator, Ali Leroy, he created it with Chris Rock. And this guy's name is Don Rio. Just unbelievable writer. And one of the directors and producers comes in, a guy named Jerry Levine, and he's whistling. He's so happy, you know, like Bob Hope. You know, this is a happy guy. And Don says, how you doing, Jerry? And Jerry says, oh, I'm living the dream. And Don said, you know how that dream ends, don't you?
Well, that's it.
So, you know, there's a lot going on with the book.
Yeah.
You know, this is my life story. We've got this, you know, I'm a TV movie writer. There's stuff, you know, around it. And then in addition to that, there's the challenge. We have, you know, a couple sites with it. I just did a collaboration with this great New Yorker cartoonist named Brooke Bourgeois. We're going to do a syndicated comic strip with it too. Yeah, and she just sent me a lot of the stuff yesterday. She's great. So, you know, there's going to be a lot to this. And then in addition to that, you know, I just wrote that movie with David, my neighbor, and we'll take that to market when the strike's over. I have another a really important project that's in. I was nominated for an Environmental Media Award. So the politics
it came back,
and I wrote an episode called "Everybody Hates Earth Day," which and that was that I got nominated for that.
Awesome.
And it was fun, but I wrote a movie in that world, a comedy that's environmentally friendly. So that's with a producer named Paul Green, who's great. He was the president of Anonymous Content, and he's a fantastic guy. We'll take that to market when it's done too. So, you've always got to have more than one thing going. This is front burner right now, and then the other stuff will be going.
Well, it's awesome, and it should be everyone's front burner right now.
Thank you.
It was so great. The one thing that I want to know, and it just is simple, easy, besides writing, because you already said it, what is a secret thing that brings you joy that nobody knows about? PG rated, please.
Yeah, of course. A secret thing that brings me joy. Pasta.
Pasta. I love it. That brings me joy too, not the waistline, but Adam, thank you so much for being here on the show. I hope everyone goes and grabs this book. It doesn't matter if you're in college or not. It's an awesome read, and continued success and funny to you. It's been such a joy.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Go Q's.
Go Q's. I not only get to talk to amazing people in the studio, but I also get to meet them on the streets. It's time for this week's segment of
I'm most proud that I moved here to LA. When we moved here, we didn't have anything. We got a tent and we parked it on the side and we started building from there. So I'm proud that we made it out of that bad situation.
We didn't know what we were doing, but we made it work. Now we live literally in Hollywood, so we're doing pretty well. So I would say I'm most proud of that too, like how we moved out here with nothing, and we just made it happen. We both come from like a little bit of a rough background history, so it's like we owed it to ourselves to make it happen. We had to be strong for each other, because we only have one another. So on days where I was feeling weak, she would come in and be like, come on, we got this, and then on days where she was feeling sad or down, I'll be like, we got this, we'll always make it through.
I let her every morning.
Oh my God.
Every morning I just say, hey baby.
Literally she just wakes up smiling. Sometimes I ask her, how are you just so smiley all the time? And she's like, because there's no point in being sad.
It's too much energy being sad. I can't. It'll just eat me from the inside, so I'd rather be happy. So all my friends say Kai's always smiling. It's like, you want me to just walk around like this?
You ever notice how people's moods change when you smile at them?
Yeah. As soon as I smile, they're like, oh, she smiled. Hey. I'm like, oh, hey.
Yeah, let's smile for the camera.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Make sure that you go and share your smile with someone today. I'll see you next time on Good Morning Joy, where every day starts with a smile.